Hey folks, it's Chris Richards with the Richards Mortgage Group. Today I'm just going to do a very quick piece on tenancy agreements. Oftentimes I'll get an email or a message from a prospective mortgage person saying, well, I'm in my lease till August, and that's the earliest I could consider buying another place. So I just want to share some of my experience. I've been a landlord for over a decade, and I'm quite familiar with the Landlord Tenant Act. Now, I'm just going to show you quickly and help you understand if you're in what's called a fixed term tenancy. So, my contract's from say June 1st to May 31st of the following year. You can actually get out of that tenancy early. You just need to understand the law. So what I'm going to quickly do is just bring up a section from the Residential Tenancy Agreement. It's sort of a companion document. I'm just going to show you and explain what that's all about. The short version is you can end a tenancy early. You just have an obligation to mitigate the damages. And so what that means is if the landlord was expecting to receive 3 more months of rent from you, you're on the hook. However, if you can sublet the property or help the landlord bring somebody else in, or you can find somebody to substitute yourself as a tenant, then you have discharged your obligation to mitigate, and you can actually get out of the lease. So whenever I was a landlord and I had tenants who wanted to end the lease early, I said, yeah, no problem. Find your replacement. Meanwhile, I'm going to advertise the place for rent, and if you would please show the property, keep it clean, and if I can get a new replacement tenant, then I will happily let you out of your lease. That always worked well for me. So let's just take a quick look at what that looks like. So most provinces and jurisdictions in Canada have a residential tenancy act. Well, they should have, and they usually have resources for landlords and tenants just to help people understand what the law is. When you're in a lease, you are in a contract. Whether you're a landlord or a tenant, you need to understand the law, because the law is what prevails here. You can say something else, but you can't override what the act is. So this is a companion document for Alberta, and other provinces have this as well. I'll just quickly go down a couple of pages. Nice laid out table of contents, and you can sort of scan through that and become familiar. I'm going to go down into this section called Termination of Tenancy, and I just want to point out the point that I just made about ending your tenancy. Okay, so I happen to have cheated, and it's on page 66. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You don't have to read this unless you really want to dig in, but I just want to point out a fixed term tenancy goes from a particular date to a particular date, and in Alberta the tenant has to move out on the last day of the tenancy by noon. So if a tenant comes along and says, hey, I want to end my tenancy early, before the end of the fixed term, the landlord's not obligated to do that. But the tenant can try and assign or get a sublet, and the landlord must have reasonable grounds to refuse an assignment or a sublease. Now, if you find a replacement for yourself that's, crap credit or criminal or whatever, that's reasonable grounds. Now, the part that I want to highlight is this sentence right here. The landlord is entitled to receive rent from you, the tenant, until the end of your tenancy. However, the landlord must take reasonable steps to re-rent the unit. And if the landlord re-rents the unit to a new tenant, your tenancy, you're off the hook. And that was my point that I said as a landlord is, hey, help me find a replacement. Keep the place clean, show the place, and let's work together, and I'll help you end your tenancy. So if you're a tenant and you're in a fixed term tenancy and that tenancy ends, say sometime next year, know that you can legally get out of a tenancy, but you have to follow the rules, and the landlord can't lose money over your decision. So if you follow those rules and work with your landlord, there's no reason why you can't buy a house sooner than the end of your tenancy. By all means, if you are planning to buy a house, you should know well in advance, can you qualify for a mortgage? and help set up this transition, and we're happy to guide you through that. This is Chris Richards with the Richards Mortgage Group. I hope this little segment's been useful.